The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. I'm Ralph Tycho with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and I have the privilege of introducing the first episode of God's Miracle with Randy Lerch. Hello, Randy Lerch.
Well, hi, Ralph. It's a pleasure and honor to be with you today, my friend.
Oh, it is for me. We had a terrific show with you back a couple of weeks ago, and I got to get more of you and got to introduce the world to Randy Lerch, and this is going to be terrific. Let's pick up on where we left off, and I would like to talk about one of your favorite people and mine, and how Tug McGraw influenced you in life.
Well, Tug McGraw, I think it's a great story. I didn't know anything about Tug McGraw until my first spring training with the Phillies, after the Phillies had acquired Tug from the New York Mets, and they had won the World Series, and didn't know anything about Tug, whether he was a character or or anything about him. And like I tell about it in my book, the first thing I did, I'm heading out for my first day of spring training, and Tug's is just kind of a narrow pathway to the field, and Tug is standing there almost guarding it, knowing, I guess, that I was going to be coming out, and he says to me, hey. I go, yes. I was a cocky kid, and I was going to let nobody know, no one was going to push me around, and and Tug says, I'm left-handed. And I says, oh, you are? He goes, and you're left-handed. I go, I know that. He goes, and I'm a pitcher. He goes, I said, you are? He says, yeah, and you're a pitcher. I said, well, I know that. And then he comes back and forth, and then he proceeds to give me the riot act. Well, you're a young and upcoming left-handed pitcher, and if you think for 1 second you're going to get my job, you've got another thing coming. I just thought I'd let you know that. And that was my first meeting of Tug McGraw. And from that point on, we grew and had a really, really great bond throughout the years, and he was part of saving my life. Wow.
Nice. I'm going to have you tell some Tug McGraw stories, but I want to interrupt you and to give the audience an idea of how you're being honored this coming Friday in Sacramento, California, a city that I spent 7 years of my life living in, and I'm just so proud of you for this. I can't believe it. Tell us about the honor.
Yeah, and you're right, Ralph. This is the greatest honor of my lifetime, and I've had some nice honors. I was inducted into the Reading Baseball Hall of Fame and different certain things, but I've been inducted into the Sacramento Sports Hall of Fame, and growing up in the Rancho Cordova, Sacramento area, and actually in the construction industry for many years before over in the Bay Area, San Jose and Morgan Hill, San Francisco area. After retiring, I came back home and was doing my thing and struggling with my health issues from all the abuses from my past. I all of a sudden get a phone call and find out that I was part of a 41 person I guess cast or whatever that was going to be voted for to see if I got enough votes to be honored. Out of 41, they picked 5 to be honored to be voted in for the Sacramento Sports Hall of Fame, and I'm one of 5 this year.
Wow.
The 8th year they've done it, and it's Saturday night.
Oh, Saturday night, not Friday night.
Right,
where
Saturday night.
Where is it being held?
It's going to be at the Thunder Valley Casino in Roseville, California.
Okay.
They are going to, what they do is that this is the 8th year they've done it. So there has been 35 previous inductees, and Sacramento, California has had a slew of outstanding athletes, not only baseball but football. I'm going to be inducted with one of my alumni, Cordova High School Lancers. His name is Gerald Wilhite, who actually was the tailback for the Denver Broncos, and he played in a Super Bowl or 2, and so it's going to be held there, and they a lot of times will bring back a lot of the past inductees, and one of the big name past inductees, he was in the first class, was Dusty Baker, who is now. Isn't he gonna be introducing you? He's going to be my presenter, and
wow.
There's a big buzz now with all the the sign stealing, the managers being fired from the Mets and the Red Sox and the Astros. Dusty's has been interviewing for that, and I've talked to Dusty. I haven't talked to him since his interview, but he seems to think through one of his people that his interviews are going well. And I told T.C. Martin, who's the MC, that wouldn't that be something if I get presented the award from Dusty Baker and he gets the manager's job at the same time. Boy, what a buzz in the room that would be.
that would be something else. I'll tell you, I just got something over, quote, the wire. There aren't any more wires, but over the internet that a guy named Rojas, who is an Alou pedigree, is Felipe Lou's son or stepson or half-son or whatever, has been named the Met manager. I was disappointed. Yeah, this morning. I was disappointed in that because Dusty would have been my first choice. I'm a Met fan, and but there's still 2 or 3 other jobs. Houston's open. Boston.
I don't know just to start to jump on you there, but while you're mentioning Mets managers, my very close friend in high school, Jerry Manuel, who was, I believe, he the Mets manager for a few years, and
yes,
also,
he was.
Well, Jerry Manuel was one of my best friends in high school, and of course on our baseball team. He will also, unless something happens, he will be there at that event along with Dusty on Saturday night. I started to jump in there, but I thought that would be an interesting.
Well, no, you're the man. Jumping in, I jump in on you. It's your podcast, and when you go there, write down these numbers, and you call these people and have them as guests. Bring them on as guests on your podcast.
Well, this is by you talking to me about that today. It's been just such an honor, and I can't wait to learn from you on how to talk about the miracles that God did in my life and others. I'm extremely excited about this, my friend.
I am, on behalf of the network, so honored that you even considered for a moment joining us. And I want to tell you that what podcasting will do for you more than anything else is that it will give you a voice even if, quote, no one's listening, it's cathartic to say it. It's cathartic to say it, and you will get such a pleasure week in and week out of setting the record straight, so to speak. Now, I'll ask you, what made you decide on the title? I asked you, what would you name if you had a podcast? That's how I approached you. What would you name it? And you said God's Miracle. Tell me something about what went into that instantaneous response and how important God is in your life.
Great question, Ralph. You said kind of blindsided me with this and said, what would you call a podcast if you had it? And I didn't know what to say, but the first word that came to me was God, because without God, without Jesus Christ in my life, I wouldn't be sitting here. And when I was diagnosed with cirrhosis after all these years of drinking, which was, I was diagnosed 3.5 years ago, and first of all, they told me I had cirrhosis and that I was going to have to have all these fluids drained off from me, and then you need to make a liver specialist appointment. And the specialist told me that my liver was damaged to the point where I needed to get on the liver transplant list. And, I just felt like I had God's presence right then. I'd always been a believer, but I never realized how big of a presence God was in my life, and especially when, after our meeting with the doctor was over, my wife, Maria, and myself, and as I walked out, the doctor grabbed my shoulder and said, I just want you to know that you can go into liver failure at any time. And to be hit with that, the reality of it, I might not, I've got days to live. And then by being able to quit drinking after all those years, when I had tried it over and over again with no success in every way imaginable, and then to be able to quit drinking just cold turkey and go through all the symptoms of that, along with doing exactly what the doctor said, by eating the right ways, living a lifestyle that would give me as much time as I possibly could, to give me, to eat the right way so I could survive as long as possible, and give me every chance, hopefully that I might recover enough to give myself a few more years, and then a year and a half, 2 years later, after getting better and better and better and stronger, to have that same doctor look me in the eye and said, "It looks like you've been given a second chance." And
wow.
Can you imagine? After I'm getting goosebumps, chills just thinking about it, because I'm reliving it, as I'm telling you this, and then at that point, I wanted to climb the highest mountain or hill or whatever, Ralph, and scream at the top of my lungs that what God had done for me, and I was a miracle of God at that point, and that was my reason for writing the book, because I knew what it felt like to have that to be in that position, to think that that your life you're done, and then to be given a second chance. I wanted to share that with anyone that would listen, that there is hope.
Nice. Well, this podcast will give you the pedestal to do that on, but never forget that it was you that did it, no one else. I mean, you may have had an inspiration, this or that, but it was you. You got to take self-responsibility for getting better. It's not just didn't come by accident. What was the discipline like for you? What was the adjustment like for you in getting your body back?
The discipline came from, I think, from my father, and when I was a small kid, always being told by my dad that, how bad you want it is how you're going to achieve your goals, and from the time I was a little kid to all the way through sports, my dad always said, make sure you're the guy that runs the extra wind sprint or takes the extra ground ball or you're the guy that's the first at the ballpark every day, and so I think that kind of flipped a switch inside of me to where I had a new goal, and it wasn't making the major leagues. This time it was to save my life.
Which is a much higher aspiration than making the major leagues. Let's put it that way. Did it change the way you communicated with your kids? Were you more open, knowing that you had, or thinking that you had a more limited time to be on Earth?
Absolutely. When I had decided through God's Spirit had touched me to write this book, I had been asked by the Christian author that's on the book, his name is, believe it or not, Harold Lerch, who is no relation. That should be a sign right there, right?
Wow. Well, maybe he knew your mother at Crocker Bank.
No kidding, right? He had bugged me before because him having my last name and being in the Philadelphia area, his family were big Phillies fans, and then when it came about that they had a Philly, an actual Philadelphia Philly with the last name Lerch, of course, I was their favorite player, right? They followed me, and he followed me from the time that I left the Phillies, went to through my baseball career, and then he had retired. He was an engineer, and his dream was always to write Christian books, being a Christian from his upbringing, and he brought it across to me that, hey, let's write a Christian book. So at that point, it made me it gave me inspiration to want to do it.
Randy, what was the writing process like? Did you make an appointment with yourself to write X number of hours? Did you write when the Spirit moved you? Did you write down ideas on a pad when they came to you? What was a day in the life of the author, Randy Lerch, like?
It was. That's a great question, Ralph. And to finish that last question that you had asked, when Hal had come to me and said, "Let's write this book," and I didn't. He meant a book about your baseball career, not. He had nothing. He knew nothing about the cirrhosis thing or anything. So when he said, "Let's write a book," I didn't want to do it because I felt like people writing baseball stories there was too many of them out there to begin with. But I wanted to write that story about my life and what God had done for me with the cirrhosis. So kind of in a long sentence with my children, I had to think about, I'm going to write this book, and in order to write and tell the true story, I'm going to have to talk about stuff that my children didn't know anything about. So that was a heck of a hurdle to pass. But I just prayed about it and put it in God's hands, and then I prayerfully asked God to guide me every day. And I never wrote a one page or one sentence before I started. I prayerfully asked the Lord to guide me, and I like to, every time somebody says, well, well, you know, you could have done this or you could have done that, which hasn't been much of that at all. But I can always blame it on God because I prayed about it before I wrote it. But no, every day I prayerfully ask the Lord to, you know, if for His guidance, and it took me a year to do it, but it was, you know, it was. I would ask God if I felt like writing that day. I did, and things came to my mind that I never ever could have imagined, that because I have no ability to write, and it was God's Spirit that we walked this walk through the whole way for a year. That was my preparation, is to pray about it.
Did you work with the other Lerch on this, or did you work with an editor, someone else?
The way it came about, Hal and I didn't know how we were going to do it. He had written a number of Christian books. They're on Amazon and other places, but we didn't know how we were going to do long distance. It started out where I was going to record it, send it to him, and then he was going to put on paper. And I said, well, how can someone be able to put on paper what my thoughts are? So Hal and I, because he had a lot of experience in writing, decided that I would do the rough draft. I would put my thoughts down. He's the one that interjected in my book, I should say, I apologize, our book, that he would put some of the quotes from Yogi Berra, and because he's such a big baseball nut, he would put a lot of those quotes, and then he would edit them also, Ralph.
Well, like I told you last week when we talked, it's a book that's well put together and readable. It's whoever published it and designed it did it in a way that you could pick it up and start it anywhere and get into it. It isn't something that you have to read from start to finish. You can glean information from anywhere.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about in your limited time on air. It's your show. Remember that. Your first podcast. You didn't think about having a podcast when you got up this morning, did you?
No, and I'm still pinching myself and trying to, while we're talking,
Hey, simultaneously, on behalf of the network, I'm pinching myself as well. And happy to have you aboard. Tell me some Tugger stories. Tug McGraw from Vallejo, California.
Oh, boy. Not only was Tug a screwball pitcher, but Tug was a screwball. I can describe Tug McGraw as just loving the game of baseball so much, and on top of it, probably had as big a heart as he did love the game. And some of the funniest stories were Tug McGraw. He would just do some. I remember when, and this is when we were just acting stupid all the time as we grew closer. I used to love to shag fly balls, and this is a new one because it's not in the book. I just didn't have room for all the stories that he gave me. But we were in Dodger Stadium. Being in Dodger Stadium is just a great experience because it's kind of bigger than life. You got the movie stars showing up, and you're just out there. You want to shag fly balls, and I just love to run out there during batting practice. And so it was funny. Tug loved to shag too. We would have contests, and so when the Phillies were taking batting practice, I used to pretend like I was Willie Mays, the center fielder, because I grew up as a Giants fan, and I loved Willie Mays, and so I was Willie Mays, and Tug was over in left center field, and I forget who it was, probably Luzinski or Schmidt, that could hit the ball a million miles up in the air. along with a million miles over the fence, and so one of the guys hit a fly ball towards Tug, and I said, Toogie. I always called him Toogie. Toogie! And I pointed at the ball, and he looks up, and he can't see it. And I started putting my hands over my head, and I showed like, run! So, man, he has got on his horse. He starts running. He's running like crazy towards the outfield fence, trying to get away from whatever he thinks is going to hit him. And no kidding, Ralph, the ball literally hit him in the top of the head after he'd run about 50 yards. And it hit him so hard it bounced straight up in the air. It went over the fence, knocked him down. And when he got up, he was mad as a hornet at me. Just kind of stupid stuff like that, you know.
That's beautiful. It reminds me of Canseco getting hit on the head in a game a couple of years ago. He took one off the head that went for a home run. That's beautiful.
Yeah, he was a funny guy.
What do you miss most about playing? Your playing days?
The one thing that bothers me the most is that you asked about what I miss the most, but first of all, what bothers me is that I didn't appreciate it as much, because now that I watch the game of baseball, I wish that I would have been able to appreciate it more, because you know it's every part of it. But like you hear from so many ex-ball players, athletes, that the camaraderie of it all. You know, I mean, you know, a lot of things that the fans don't see, but it's the bus trips. You know, it's you know, you go into a major league clubhouse. First of all, there's just so much pressure, and even more this day and age with you know, the social media, the media. You know, in my day, yeah, you could. You know, in Japan, they could pick up the newspaper and find out what Randy Lerch did the night before. But now it's just, you know, as you know, I mean, it's overwhelming, the media. And I miss, you know, like I said, the camaraderie in the clubhouse, because there was so much pressure, getting back to the media thing, that what happened, we would tease with each other. There was so much pressure that we would, you know, we'd go back and forth, and you know, there was no limits. I remember I was able to get in Pete Rose's, you know, get in his kitchen, we used to say, and irritate him. And then I'd irritate him to the point where, you know, he finally, to win the argument, he said, you know what, kid? He says, one thing, the difference between you and I is, and what they had is every Sunday, they would, in the sports page, they would post every single major leaguer stats
yes.
of what they did that week. Well, then the top 10 hitters, pitchers, and everything, they posted every day in the sports page. And he says, kid, the difference between you and I, you've got to wait till Sunday to see what your stats are. He says, I get to look at the paper every day and see what mine are, because I'm in the top 10.
The ego. Would you confirm with me that most players, not all, there are the Mickey Mantles and the Willie Mazes and the natural, incredible talents out there, that most players are pretty much as talented as the next guy, and that it is one's head that makes the difference?
Oh, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. I can speak for myself. As you know, when I came out of high school, I mean, I was minor league pitcher of the year. I led the league in almost every category, and then started out in the major leagues, and I didn't have the tutoring, and I got into the drugs and alcohol, and you know, my mind wasn't where it needed to be. And then I look back on guys that I played with that had the discipline. You know, guys like Mike Schmidt. I mean, Larry Boa and Bob Boone. You know, a lot of those great names that those guys came to the ballpark. They got there early. They were prepared, and their career showed. You know, it showed that they were.
Now, Larry Boa is a name that can be traced back to Sacramento. Did you know him growing up as well?
I didn't know him growing up, but we definitely took a liking to each other on the big club. Larry had been successful there for a number of years before I made the team, and I knew and followed Larry because he was from Sacramento, and then of course once I was playing with the Phillies, of course through the media and stuff. I knew that Larry was another Sacramento kid, and Larry was also inducted into this Sacramento Sports Hall of Fame in a class before mine, and he was supposed to be there, but now he has a prior engagement. But yeah, Larry's another Sacramento kid.
Good. I'm going to ask you this as the final question of the day. You came back to live in the town that you were supposed to live in. We're back in Northern California, in small town atmosphere, this, that, or the other thing. Of all the places that you played in the majors, if you had to live in one of those cities for the rest of your life, and let's not include San Francisco or that, because that's too close. That's only 100 miles away. What are the other cities that you would live in, and what are some of the other cities that you definitely wouldn't live in under any circumstances? And you can include your minor league experiences in answering that question. Favorites and least favorites.
Ralph, are you sure that I want to start my first podcast telling people the worst cities?
No, let's start with the best. Let's start. You have a flair for this. You have the flair for this that I never had. So we're going to work really well together. I'm going to let you do the talking and the thinking, and I'll do the technical stuff. We'll work great.
I'm glad you threw in the minor leagues, because this for me is a really cool story. And I've never seen this or heard of it, but when in AAA, when we went to play in Denver, Colorado, before they had the Rockies, and I couldn't believe the beauty that was there, and that we had an off day, and the beauty was breathtaking at the stadium, right outside of Denver. But when we had an off day, and then we had a golf trip, and so a bunch of the guys got up, and we went to a unique golf course, and I don't know the name. It's been way too many years, but they told me that they made someone might know that's listening. They made the golf course from an aerial photograph, pretty much, with just removing a few trees that was built right in the forest. And there wasn't even enough room for a driving range. And I couldn't believe when we got there, we were hitting off the driving tee, and they had to have balls that floated because you were hitting them into a lake. That was some beautiful lake surrounded by trees, the pine trees and stuff. And so we started out that way, and couldn't believe when I got up to the first tee that, of course, the kids always want to see how far. Everyone wants to see how far they can hit it, but when you're young and you want to see who can hit it the farthest. I couldn't believe, because of the light air, how far a drive would go 400 yards. You're almost driving every green. The beauty of Denver, Colorado, and the light air was the most beautiful place I ever played. Now, do you want to know the first?
Hey, I'm going to leave the editorial stuff up to you. You tell me what you want to tell me.
Well,
no more, no less.
There was a lot of cities that in the major leagues that we didn't get a chance because, they bust you, flew in, they bust you in, and there was you never got to see outside the city. So to be honest, you had no real concept of what and why the people lived there, because you didn't know what the surrounding area was like, except that the fans loved their team and their town. How about that answer?
That's a good answer. You know what? You're a natural, my friend. And again, welcome to the network. And you just have a healthy and a happy week, and we'll do this again 1 week from today. How about that?
Well, I'm so excited, Ralph. I appreciate everyone this opportunity.
All right. All right, Randy. Thank you. I'm honored to have you. This is a feather in my cap and in the cap of the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Thank you, Randy Lerch. God's miracle. We will return next week. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And I'm gonna plug a little something for you, Randy. This is what I whenever I think about it, when I'm concluding a show, I mentioned Head Start. If you really want to show some appreciation to Randy for a terrific offering, box up some lightly used or even new children's books and take them over to the Head Start program in whatever community you live in. If it's in beautiful Colorado, or where they boo the Easter Bunny in Philadelphia, could be anywhere. But if you box up some books for these kids, they will develop a passion potentially. They'll learn to read. They'll learn to become school ready. And by just the definition, the Head Start program is geared to kids who need a head start in life. And giving them the gift of literature is a lifetime gift. So have a neighborhood drive, go to your bookstore and ask them if they wouldn't give you some used books that you can take over to the Head Start. Do whatever it takes, but get some books to these kids, and it will be in Randy's honor. How about that?
Well, that is, I appreciate that so much. Everyone get the books. And Ralph, I know you mentioned it, buddy, but also get my book, God in the Bullpen, and you can find
no question. God in the Bullpen, that's on Amazon. And
yep.
Randy, tell people how they can, and autographs are very important to folks. In my sports fanaticism, I have found that to be true. What if somebody wants an autographed copy of your book? What would be the best way of doing that?
We've just started an address where the book can be sent, and I don't know if you want to wait until the next show, or I don't have it in front of me if you want me to grab it real quick, but we've got an address now, as far as right there, my special wife Maria she just handed it to me. Here we go. Are you ready?
All right. You have an assistant. You're getting bigger in this business than I could ever hope to be. You've already got an assistant. Don't call her an assistant. You're damn right. You're damn right.
And she's beautiful.
All right. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're darn right. That would be more apropos you're darn right would be more apropos for a book about God. But let's. You're good. What's the address, Randy?
Well, they're going to have to send $10 for postage on this, Ralph. It's 3450 Palmer, Palmer Drive.
Right.
That's Suite 4-196.
Okay.
And that's Cameron, Cameron Park
in
California.
California. Give a zip code if you can.
You got it, buddy. 95682.
Thank you, Randy. Great show, great debut, and a lot of fun for me. You're very enjoyable for me to talk to.
I'm really excited. Thank you so much for the opportunity, my friend, and I'll be talking to you soon.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We're out of here. Adios.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.